Obviously, I am not here to argue religious perspectives on it. I just want to know the practicality of it in your eyes. Personally, I view it as a symbolic way of giving my significant other half of my possessions as a romantic gesture. Story 1. It is a contract that has well-established benefits as well as its own dilution and extensive case law to support it. There are usually financial advantages. Can also matter a lot if you are incapacitated or die early and unexpectedly. There are dozens, if not hundreds, of cases before marriage equality where partners had lived together for years or decades and were shut out by homophobic family members. This included being denied medical decisions, not even being able to visit in the hospital, having no say over remains, being removed from their home, or having to sell property because a parent or sibling received half of the estate. Even if you planned, there are ways of contesting wills and overriding medical powers of attorney that are easier if you are not related by blood or marriage. If you are separating, marriage provides a methodical and theoretically fair way of dividing assets. Have a joint account with a partner and they can take everything, tough luck. Do it while married and you are protected. If you have a house together, without marriage you have to sue to get your equity versus having it divided in a divorce. Some entities, such as the military, only recognize marriage. Then if you have children, it becomes more complicated. For the ceremony, I got married by giving a judge $80 in cash in his chambers, which I suspect was not reported. Then I bought a house instead of throwing a big party that would have caused more stress than it was worth. Story 2. At its core, marriage is a legal principle, not a religious one. For the majority of situations, people in a de facto marriage have much the same rights as people in a formal marriage, but there are a few rights they do not have. A user named Justine13 has already listed some of these. There is no requirement to make a large romantic gesture that costs tens of thousands of dollars. Story 3. Old man here, divorced, and I will never do it again. I have been with the love of my life for over 20 years now, and neither of us sees the need. We do not need a piece of jewelry or a piece of paper to tell us where our hearts lie. We wake up and choose to be together all over again every single day. There is a certain beauty in that. Story 4. I am married because that is what my wife wanted. I would have been happy to continue living together. Story 5. I'm not religious at all, but I think marriage makes practical sense in a few ways. If you have children, you both have default access to them in school and medical situations. If one of you goes into the hospital and visitation is restricted to family only, you are allowed to visit. If you build up significant assets in your lifetime, there are spousal benefits in dividing them. Social Security and private pensions, if any, also provide spousal benefits, though this might not be an advantage if both spouses earn equal income. Story 6. Depending on where you live, there are often legal and financial advantages to marriage, including tax incentives, employee health insurance benefits, next of kin rights in medical decisions and inheritance, and spousal privilege in court proceedings. None of these should be the sole motivation to get married, but they are important factors to consider if you are undecided. Some benefits, such as inheritance and medical decisions, can be addressed through other legal means like a will and power of attorney. However, others, such as health insurance and tax benefits, may not be available without marriage. Story 7. Marriage is a celebration where you show the people close to you how much you love your partner and take a vow in front of them to continue on that journey. There is a point to marriage. If you don't feel that way, you are not ready. Story 8. In British Columbia, people can have a common law relationship without being married. This union may not be recognized if someone moves to another country. Additionally, many countries provide legal protections or rights that are only available to married couples. Story 9. I very much enjoy mine. We are not religious, but I married into a Mexican family and they were not going to pass up an opportunity to throw a party. Plus, we wanted to do it for ourselves. It helps with tax purposes and having children. Story 10. I have always been against it unless children are involved. I am an atheist and never wanted children or to get married, but I have always wanted a relationship. Story 11. Marriage was invented well before any modern religion and existed solely outside of religion for centuries. Religions appropriated marriage. Story 12. Every statistic on children shows that they do better in a household with both a mother and a father who stay together. If you want to give children the best advantage in life, provide them with a living mother and father. That alone is a significant predictor of success and stability, outweighing almost every other factor except exceptional wealth. Story 13. Only get married because of the benefits, lower taxes, and because my partner has the right to make decisions about my health if I am unable to. She is also able to receive detailed medical information from doctors, which a typical girlfriend would not be allowed to receive. Otherwise, a regular relationship should be treated like a marriage. A piece of metal and a signature should not affect the dynamic of a relationship. Story 14. If you are not religious, is there a point? I cannot see any real incentives for it, but my overall sentiment is that the prerequisite to marriage is a very high level of trust between each other. At that point, I would wonder how a contract or some religious ritual would be worth anything, because a vow of commitment can be made even without that, and equally a celebration of that commitment. If your partner telling you they plan to be with you forever is not sufficient assurance of their commitment, then I guess you two are not ready for marriage anyway. Story 15. I am not religious, but I view marriage as extremely important. I am deeply in love with my wife. We are committed to working through our problems and being what the other needs. We have both changed significantly over the 21 years we have been together, but we always find each other and make the other a priority. Story 16. To me, it is just the government getting involved in our relationship, an optional expensive party with a group of people I either do not know or can barely tolerate, along with a handful of people I like, and a piece of paper that says I will not cheat. I do not need a piece of paper to tell me not to cheat. I do not cheat because I am not that kind of person. With a 50% track record, it does not seem worth it to me. Divorce is much more complicated than just breaking up. Story 17. I am not religious. From a practical standpoint, many things in society, especially in the United States and most other countries, are easier if you are married rather than just coupled. Some benefits mainly affect you when you are older, and this discussion tends to focus on younger people. One important benefit for younger individuals is healthcare coverage. While some companies allow you to extend healthcare benefits to a partner, many still require legal marriage. Filing taxes jointly can save a significant amount of money. Being able to manage your spouse's healthcare if they become incapacitated is also important. Although you can gain similar authority with a power of attorney, marriage makes the process faster and simpler. Story 18. Not very religious, and yes, there is a point. The point is having a committed life partner. Giving and receiving that level of commitment from someone is a requirement to have my children. Too many children come from broken homes, and this minimizes but does not eliminate that risk. Story 19. I see no reason to get married. My next of kin will be the same person as if I were single. I find it ironic that women are willing to reject all the ancient traditions of patriarchal oppression except marriage. Nobody needs to get married anymore. There is no point in getting married. Story 20. I am 28, have been married for 3 years, and struggled with this question before I walked down the aisle. What I decided was that it came down to whether you want to have children. If you want children, married parents are much more likely to give that child stability, which is what they desperately need. If you do not want children, do not bother getting married. Also, if you enter a marriage expecting it to fail, you will only prove yourself right. It is a leap of faith, brother. Story 21. My wife and I did not really care about marriage except that we are from different countries. I want to live in her country, and her country does not recognize common law relationships. If it were not for practical visa and residence reasons, neither of us would care. Story 22. I love the idea of marriage. I dislike what modern marriages have become. I would get married with the right woman who has the right mentality. Story 23. There are some advantages to having children, shared finances, and similar benefits. People also do it to show commitment. Story 24. The wedding is a celebration or party. Marriage is a legal and economic agreement between two parties. My husband and I got married because we owned property together and were having children. In Sweden, the children inherit from the parent if he or she is not married. You cannot change that with a will according to our inheritance laws. We are both atheists and got married in a civil ceremony. Story 25. Older man here, have gone through a divorce once and do not plan on doing it a second time. I live with a woman, and if something happens to me, she will be fine with the inheritance. Story 26. Parents were divorced. Grandparents divorced the ones they had children with. Even most of my great-grandparents divorced, and the ones who did not really should have. Most of the people I went to school with have divorced parents now. Marriage and family have mostly been theoretical concepts to me that I have rarely seen work in practice. Story 27. I have always wanted to get married. I am not religious, but I think it is a positive tradition. I am permanently separated now, but I do not regret having been married. Story 28. I am personally not comfortable with marriage. I work too hard to have half my belongings taken by someone when we get divorced, and she could receive most of my assets because she is given priority when children are involved. Story 29. No, and there never was a point if you aren't doing it from the point of view of religion. Forget all the creationism, your stance, etc. I don't care if you believe or not, and for the purposes of marriage, it doesn't really matter if you personally believe. It's more about what religion does for you as a framework in the marriage. To understand why, just ask yourself what exactly a binding marriage is. It is a divine contract you make personally before your God, so if you break it, you will answer for it. That is a pretty big commitment. Secondly, it bound families in that Game of Thrones fashion and made both the bride and groom's extended families equal participants who benefited in that union. In the old days, this was very good for the combined family's prospects. For example, if the groom's father was a miller and the bride's family had a barley or wheat field, it was the equivalent of a corporate merger but for peasantry. Now, the extended family is literally the trigger of the divorce in many cases. How many people absolutely hate their in-laws, and all that comes of it are uncomfortable holidays. Her side of the family constantly takes her side and drives a wedge between you, instead of what they used to do. Facilitate space for you and your spouse to deal with grievances. Finally, the greater community as a whole, who for better or worse, would shame both of you for all time if you ever broke this vow and make life in your community much less comfortable. In 2025, shame is a distant memory, and there is no real community, so yes, 0 out of 3 on the levers that made marriage stable and none of the reward. When there are divorce party organizers making hundreds of thousands a year in Las Vegas, women drinking around the world at Epcot celebrating their divorce openly, and just statistics in general, I think that is the point where we are just dancing on the corpse of the institution. It is the blatant nihilism that makes marriage pointless. It is like your high school graduation 8 years after the fact. I can honestly say it did not matter at all, but at least my mom got a kick and some photos out of that, and I was not at risk of losing anything but an afternoon for going to the ceremony. Marriage is mostly just a spectacle now, a high-engagement Instagram post for her and a life milestone made on your dime for the sake of her social standing. It is a joke. You can still have a relationship, obviously, in 2025. You just have to ask yourself what marriage is going to do for it. I think you have to be far more deliberate about what you want and whether it will directly contribute to that, and not have rosy lights in your eyes. Social media directly contributes to this as women now compete who can have the gaudiest, most expensive $30,000 to $50,000 party before the relationship implodes due to the lack of the Chesterton's fence. This is the reason marriage and dating in general are irreparably broken right now. We actually need people to get married and have children because birth rate is the bedrock of our civilization economically, but it does not have to be you beta testing modern marriage to get financially ruined and emotionally gutted. What we really need to do is formally address that circumstances are different and create a modern equivalent, but that will never happen. It is too nuanced a subject, and every group under the sun, fundamentalists, etc., will have their own take and form of ownership over what shape that will take. Plus, there is just too much residual attachment to marriage as a concept, even though it is literally a false bill of goods in modernity. Story 30. A contract that the state can modify where the terms change with a move is obsolete. Modern non-binding handfasting seems more useful to celebrate a union that may be dissolved by either party. Marriage also fails to accommodate the complex nature of relationship webs with multiple partners. Having worked in a divorce firm, I agree with WKD 52. Story 31. I see 0 point in it. It is a contract, in fact, a legal contract. Yet, for the man in the relationship, there are zero benefits, only negatives for signing it. No one can explain to me any other contract I would sign that would only give me negatives and no benefits, and yet I would be expected to sign. Story 32. Yes, of course there is. It is the ultimate form of love. We are not religious and we are also child-free. Still, all we wanted was to get married. If you meet the right person, you will understand. If you do not meet the right person, you will divorce and complain that marriage is bad. It is not, you just chose wrong. Story 33. For my cultural background, marriage is a secular affair connecting families with legal recognition and is something I will participate in. It is not religious in the Western sense of religion, just a part of the rituals, rites, and social expectations in the culture. Story 34. Many men see no point until they are madly in love with a woman. That is what love does. It makes you do irrational things. Story 35. We are atheists. We were not when we got married, but I am with my best friend. The marriage is for everyone, not God. 30 years married. Story 36. I think that from a legal and financial perspective, marriage can be very useful and beneficial in certain societies. Beyond that, it can encourage addressing any problems you might have instead of leaving when things are not great. Whether you are in an unmarried long-term relationship or married, you should stay together because you consciously choose to, not because you feel stuck, obligated, or that you have to. Story 37. I am not religious. It is about establishing a form of relationship, emotionally and legally. It makes things easier in every way, especially during separation, which is the main point. Story 38. From a completely non-moral or non-religious standpoint, there are a few benefits. 1. Religion or not, marriage provides the best possible environment to raise children. This is the most important and main reason for marriage. 2. Marriage provides a known form of insurance. You and your spouse will split risk and assets, just like every insurance policy. Some people get out more than they put in, and some get less than they put in. But you split everything in a marriage, so your individual risk is lower. Story 39. If you get married and then divorce, you and your spouse will each get half of your shared assets. She will not get half of your separate assets, and you will not get half of hers. You will split only the assets acquired together after marriage. If there is a large income disparity, it is possible the higher earner may owe spousal support, but not always. There are tax benefits and ease of making medical decisions. Research the history of why people fought for same-sex marriage to learn more about the rights and benefits of marriage. It is up to you to decide if these matter personally. Story 40. I'm happily married. I'm also a Christian. Our faith is a very central part of our relationship. The vows we took hinge on our relationship with God. Marriage is, after all, an institution created by God, not the government. I have to admit, I do see that there is no point in getting married if you aren't religious. The vows you take aren't just between you and your wife. They are between you, your wife, and God. You can't go into it planning on giving her half your belongings. You go into it with a commitment to choose to love each other and tough it out no matter what life throws at you. Story 41. For a man with assets, it is an absolutely terrible contract to sign. It is one of the few legal contracts where you are very likely to lose half of your assets regardless of any prenuptial or postnuptial agreement. The woman can hire a lawyer who can easily challenge the prenuptial agreement by claiming it was signed under duress or that financial assets were insufficiently disclosed. Ultimately, a judge can arbitrarily decide that it is unfair and invalidate it completely. Many states will simply divide assets in half, regardless of salary imbalance, inheritance, or other factors. If you acquired assets during the marriage, they are deemed joint assets and will be split evenly, even if one party was unemployed or unfaithful. Child custody rulings are statistically extremely unfavorable to males. Marriage contracts do provide some tax benefits and legal protections in medical situations. However, you must choose your spouse carefully. Story 42. Personally, I just view it as a fancy symbolic way of giving my significant other half my stuff as a big romantic gesture. A common theme among men who cannot get women or end up with bad ones. For me, at least, marriage is a public commitment about a shared journey with hopefully your best friend. Story 43. If you want to manage the financial risks of, for example, divorce, get a prenuptial agreement. If you and your spouse cannot agree on the terms of a prenuptial agreement, you will not be able to agree on the terms of a divorce. Otherwise, you can live long-term without a marriage if you are a household of independent adults, each having your own career, insurance, assets, and so on. If your relationship is asymmetrical, such as expecting your spouse to do more cleaning than you do, or if you have dependents, including children, elderly parents, or disabled siblings, marriage as a legal arrangement becomes increasingly necessary to protect everyone. Also, living together for a certain number of years may automatically marry you. This is called common law marriage and exposes you to almost all the legal risks of marriage with few of the benefits or protections. Story 44. Marriage has nothing to do with the church, unless you choose to have the ceremony inside one. If I found the one, I would marry them. It is not just about giving her half of my possessions. From the way you phrased the question, I would guess you are under 30 years old. Marrying someone makes legal matters easier in the event of death. Story 45. I have not been married yet, but from the experiences I have observed, it seems that most men do not really express their opinions and simply agree with their partners. I do not mean to be offensive. I care about everyone. Story 46. It can be an inheritance issue if you have children. I have been married for 30 years. We got married because otherwise she could not be on my work visa back in the day. If we split or she passes away, I will not remarry. I am too old to have more children, so there is no need. Story 47, extremely practical from a legal point of view, for reasons many people have already mentioned. I roll my eyes at those who dismiss it as a piece of paper. It is a legal document that opens many doors and makes family matters easier to navigate. If you are worried about things going wrong and losing your assets, get a prenuptial agreement. Story 48. I am religious, so sex is a primary reason to get married. Having said that, if I were not religious, I really do not see a reason to marry. The disadvantages heavily outweigh the advantages. Story 49. I do not see the point of marriage. Name one benefit that marriage offers men other than saving on taxes by filing jointly. Story 50. The only point is to have a family. I am old enough now that I have had my family. If something happens to my wife, I am done. I will never get married again. Story 51. Marriage is a societal binding together of two people so they can survive without burdening others in the difficult conditions present in early human societies where survival was far from assured. In the modern world, there is not much point aside from the legal benefits, but those can be had in a civil union, such as making medical decisions and the inability to be compelled to testify against each other. Story 52. I will never be legally attached to a woman or anyone unless she fears God. I am not religious. Maybe I will be at some point, but not now. Story 53. Early 30s atheist, so no religious incentive to marry. At the beginning of this year, I would have said personally there is. I have loved being a husband and was looking forward to being a father in a couple of years. I enjoyed the strong sense of commitment and presenting a clear, united front to the world. However, that only works if both parties are equally committed. Given what my wife has put me through in the last couple of months, my eyes are open. No, men should not get married. The tangible downsides when you are betrayed are far too severe to make up for the vague positive thoughts associated with being married. Story 54. I am a 41-year-old male, have been married, and will not do it again. Men have nothing to gain and everything to lose through marriage. I have been with someone for 7 years now, and neither of us wants to get married. We are happy with our relationship. If it all goes south and ends in a divorce because people do not take relationships seriously anymore, at least in the United States, you are fighting a system that still operates as if it is 1960. When women were stay-at-home mothers and men were the breadwinners. Men get devastated in divorce while women tend to come out better than when they went in. Story 55. You have to be very careful. It is super easy to get scammed. That said, I still hope to do it someday. I will not feel fulfilled if I do not do it. Story 56. The only time and place that marriage is somewhat necessary or perhaps beneficial may be for health insurance and retirement benefits, including Social Security. Otherwise, I cannot see how it benefits anyone. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.